And blacksmithing is when you work the metal hot, but with silversmithing you use heat to soften the metal, and then it's quenched and pickled, and then you actually work silver in its cold state. This is the hearth, which is the main area for kind of heating bits of silver. It's the kind of the main part of a silversmithing workshop, really. It's always connected to working the metal, transforming the metal to a soft condition before it can then be hammered and worked and shaped. So I'm just going to turn on the air and gas. The malleability of the metal is restored to the silver through this heating process, but really you're looking at the changes in the silver, so you're looking at the colour change into a dull cherry red, and that's when the molecular structure of the silver has kind of been relaxed and returns to its normal state again. With metal you can compress it, you can stretch it, you can really twist it and turn it and bend it in all sorts of directions. Once the whole surface has been worked, it's always good to just anneal it again, really just to ensure that the metal doesn't crack. And so now I'm just going to let that cool down, and it's now going to be quenched and then pickled. And quenching is when you just submerge a piece into some water. It just cools it down, and then it's pickled, and this is an acid solution, and pickling just removes all the oxides that build up on the surface when you heat up the silver. So it's heated with this kind of thermostat here, and then just kind of left in here for 2 minutes. The silver itself comes out clean. Well, this is the shape of final beaker. I'm just going to hammer this using a ball peen hammer and into this kind of hollowed out block of wood. With sinking you start from the edge and then you work towards the centre. From blocking you're actually stretching the metal and thinning it out, but it is becoming much more deep in its form. So I'm going to stretch the metal so it becomes a bit more of a deeper bowl shape before I then turn it over, and then I'm actually going to start hammering from the outside. I'm actually going to change hammers for the raising process, and it has a bit more of a slight curve there but flat, so that just kind of pinches and compresses the metal. So these guidelines just help me when I put it onto the stake and I'm hammering, and then I can just follow that line so I'm not kind of jumping a step, so that way it keeps the shape more regular. That just kind of pinches the metal inwards. When you anneal the metal, the surface is left a matte white colour. That helps when you're hammering because you can actually see the footprints of the hammer onto the surface. Probably need to put a bit more kind of muscle power into this last part. The next stage would be just to use a technique called bouging, which is using a wooden mallet. It could be leather or a horn mallet, and that just moves the metal just to even out the shape again, to make it a bit more kind of a regular circle. And then the next stage is to cut the edge, which just thickens the edge up. Using this cross peen hammer, I'm just going to hit at a 90 degrees angle. It's important to keep the elbows in and the wrist pretty much stays quite loose. Having a sandbag just kind of locates the piece and secures it into position, and it also absorbs the sound as well. So corking often happens after raising and just before you anneal the metal. Planishing is a finishing technique where the metal is being refined. It's using a slightly domed hammer with a highly polished face. It's a technique that just smooths and refines the metal, and it's a very kind of therapeutic form of hammering. And almost kind of stroking the metal as opposed to the hand raising where you're putting a lot of force into compressing and forming the metal. It's probably one of the longest parts of actually making an object. You're just applying thousands and thousands of tiny kind of hammer blows into the surface of the silver to smooth the surface. Today's my first day at Kedleston Hall, and I'm going to be working on this beaker. The last time where we set off for my workshop, I was working on hand raising this silver tumbler, and since then I've scribed the design on using the scribing tool. I mean, I use a scriber tool as if it was a pencil. It's like drawing onto a three-dimensional object. So after the scribing, the silver tumbler is filled with pitch, and pitch is a material that provides a firm working surface. Because chasing adds decorative detail to metal, it comes with a variety of different shapes and size punches. And then I'm just going to use this chasing hammer. What makes this different is that it has a flat, wide face. The handle is made out of ash wood, which is the same wood that's used for longbows, and it just gives it that extra spring. So the fingers are like rudders, which then just guides the punch along the scribe line, and then you just kind of tap faster than you can count. The finished piece is going to be the winning prize for a draw which is open to the public. With engraving, I'm using these filmmaker in different cuts, and this is more of a traditional sort of engraving.